Walt Disney was an international celebrity by the time he was 30. Hailed a genius before he was 40, with honorary degrees from Harvard and Yale. He built a media and entertainment company that stands as one of the most powerful on the planet.
This little fellow is fashionable.
Won more Academy Awards than anybody in history. Created a cinematic art form. And invented a new kind of American vacation destination. Disney's work counts adoring fans on every continent, and critics who decried its smooth facade of sentimentality and stubborn optimism, its feel-good rewrite of American history.
Disney's a Rorschach in America. The love and hate, it's off the charts. But God, you have got to respect the energy of this guy. I mean, he is lunging every day of his life.
Well, kids, Babes in Toyland is finished. And now it's time to celebrate.
Nobody who does stuff on the scale that he did is a sweetheart of a guy. I think he wanted to be what his image was. He wanted to be thought of as a hail fellow, well-met, good-natured, but he wasn't.
Walt Disney is in many ways a very dark soul. And one could say that he fought that darkness, tried to find the light.
He is feeling so much inside, and he wants people to feel what he feels is inside. He could take those feelings that were so central to who he was, put them on screen, and allow other people to also feel them along with him.
Most successful people, they get one thing right, and that's it. But Walt Disney was a guy who got a whole lot of things right. What did this guy understand about the human psyche?
1928, in the release of Steamboat Willie, the picture that introduced sound to the cartoon and Mickey Mouse to the world. Was it actually the first cartoon in which Mickey appeared?
Yes, in which Mickey appeared, yes. But I was making cartoons long before that. In fact, I think I've been in this business about as long as anybody living today. I started actually in the to make my first animated cartoons 1920. Of course, they're very crude things then, and I used sort of little puppet things. We didn't draw them like we do today. I used to make little cutout things, and joints were pinned, and we'd put them under the camera, and we'd maneuver them and make them do things. And
this was before you came to Hollywood, actually.
Oh, yes, this started back in Kansas City, Missouri, where I was working in made the little advertisements for theaters. It's equivalent to what you see in TV commercials today, you know? Put your winter coat in early, you know? Get your fedora block for the winter and all those kinds of things.
Well, now, in the early 1940s, we saw Saludos Amigos and a little later the Three Caballeros, the latter being the first combination of live action and cartoons. Tell us a little about how those two pictures came into being.
Oh, so which one, the Saludos Amigos?
That I presume kind of led you to the Three Caballeros.
Well, that was, I was asked by the government to go to South America, and kind of a cultural thing, you know, before the, those Nazi days.
Yeah.
And I went down with the staff to see if I couldn't make some films about the ABC countries down there. You know, there's Argentina, Brazil, and Chile. And they first wanted me to go on a handshaking goodwill tour, and I said, I don't go for it. I'm not a good handshaker and everything. And then they came back and said, well, you go down and make some films about these countries. I said, well, that's my business. I can do that.
Take a pencil in your hand.
That's right. So I took a staff, and we set up headquarters in Rio. We also went and set up a studio in the Argentine. We went over to Chile, and some of my artists, we divided a party. Some of them went up through Peru. And when we came back, I made these 4 short subjects. We brought back the Tico Tico tune that was being played down there, and I brought that back and put it in. Brought back Brazil, and both of them became standard tunes here. And out of it, we developed this little Brazilian parrot, Jose Carioca, who played with Donald Duck. Anyways, these 4 films were more or less put together, and they went out in the theater. And of course, it was one of those things that they thought Disney needed a subsidy, but fortunately, that little thing went out, and it did a heck of a business, and the United States government didn't have to put up 1 nickel.
Oh, wonderful.
It was actually a goodwill tour for the government.
Oh, wonderful.
It was actually a goodwill tour for the government.
Picture first.
No, in the days of Steamboat Willie, it was picture first. And then we used to put the sound on afterwards, and in those days you couldn't do what we call dubbing today, where you could mix a lot of tracks. And it wasn't yet science that you could get away with, so we used to have to do everything at one time. And we used to have to run the cartoon. We'd have the fellows with the sound effects, we had the people with the voices, we had the orchestra going, and everybody had to synchronize and hit that thing right on the button. And we had a way of doing it, though. We had a little kind of a little beat that worked up and down, and there was so many of those beats, and they were all musicians working for me, so they could follow those beats, and when it came to a certain number of beats, they would go, ah, or they would go bang, or they would go this, or they would pop one of these pop guns, and it would always fit.
It was kind of opening night for everybody.
Oh, yeah, it was a madhouse. It really was.
Well, after Steamboat Willie, of course, came the silly symphonies. So many of them so happily remembered. And not quite 10 years after Steamboat Willie, we saw Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. First feature-length cartoon.
Yes, just about 10 years.
How long was it in production, Walt?
I actually started to plan the picture about 1935. And I fooled around with it, trying to get a hold of a story and things for a couple of years, and finally it began to gel. Then I went to work on it, and I finished it the fall of 1938. And I didn't know what I had or what would happen or anything. We had the family fortune. We had everything wrapped up in Snow White. In fact, the banker, I think, was losing more sleep than I was. And fortunately, we put it in, premiered it, and everything else. Why, everything was fine. The banker was happy.
And the following spring along came that Academy Award.
Oh, yeah, but it wasn't but about 2 years later that I was almost broke.
Well, 2 years later was following Pinocchio and coming into the Fantasia period.
Yeah, that about did it,
But that was a
artistic success, financial failure.
Certainly an artistic success. It was a magnificent.
Well, there's some people would question that too.
And I recall a new and musical Mickey, really impressive as a conductor.
Well, that's what started. I was doing this Sorcerer's Apprentice with Mickey Mouse, and I happened to have dinner one night with Stokowski. And Stokowski said, "Oh, I would love to conduct that for you." Well, that led to not only doing this one little short subject, but it got us involved where I did all of Fantasia, and before I knew it, I ended up spending $400,000 getting music with Stokowski.
Well,
but we were in then. It was a point of no return. We went ahead and made it.
It was certainly worth it every foot of the way.
Well, he's a great guy, though. I don't want to belittle Stokowski, but he is a great musician, a great artist.
Well, perfectionism always costs money, I guess, and that's certainly something you've always been after.
Well, I was always known as a perfectionist until I met Stokowski.
And you had a new member of the club, indeed. Well, let's change the subject for a few minutes, Walt, from film activities to outside activities. Perhaps I should say outdoors activities. I'd like to talk to you about Disneyland. Where did you originally get the first notion for Disneyland?
Well, it came about when my daughters were very young, and Saturday was always Daddy's Day with the 2 daughters. So we'd start out and try to go someplace with, different things, and I would take them to the merry-go-round, and I took them different places, and as I'd sit there while they rode the merry-go-round, did all these things, sit on a bench, eating peanuts, I felt that there should be something built, some kind of an amusement enterprise built where the parents and the children could have fun together. So that's how Disneyland started. Well, it took many years. It was a whole period of maybe 15 years developing. I started with many ideas, threw them away, started all over again. And eventually it evolved into what you see today as Disneyland. But it all started from a daddy with 2 daughters wondering where he could take them, where he could have a little fun with them too.
Well, now that Disneyland is flourishing as a place of dreams coming true, who goes to Disneyland? What is the ratio of adults to children as part of the flight of father and daughter?
Four adults to one child. That is, we're counting, though, the teenagers as adults.
Of course.
But, of course, in the wintertime, you can go out there during the week and you won't see any children. You'll see all the oldsters out there riding all these rides and having fun and everything. At summertime, of course, the average would drop down. But a year-round average, it's 4 adults to one child.
And, of course, there, in my knowledge, there's only been one adult who's been refused permission to the park.
No, we didn't refuse them permission. No, we were all set. You see, we work according to what the State Department wants to do. When they come in, they have guests. If Khrushchev was a guest of the government. So, I mean, we were ready to receive Khrushchev. But it so happened that the security problem here in Los Angeles, because actually Disneyland is in another county, you see, and the chief of police, we can't blame him. He had quite a chore there to carry out. He just was a little worried about somebody maybe walking in Disneyland with a shopping bag and what they might have in it. You would never be able to know, you know.
Exactly. And
but we were ready for him. The press was ready. Both the State Department security and the Soviet security had come and cased Disneyland, and they were all set. And I was all ready, and in fact, we've had a lot of dignitaries down there, and,
I should say.
He was one that Mrs. Disney wanted to go down and meet, was Khrushchev. So she was disappointed he didn't come.
Well, it's certainly not ever an empty place, so I can understand the security men's concern.
We had different shots, places where we take pictures with Khrushchev, and I had one, my favorite, where we lined up in front of my 8 submarines, you see, and I thought, well, it'd be nice. I've been pointing to Mr. Khrushchev and saying, well, now, Mr. Khrushchev, here's my Disneyland submarine fleet. It's the eighth largest submarine fleet in the world.
Is it really? Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to be seeing part of the tour that the submarines make presently, so it's interesting to hear about. What was the initial cost of the Disneyland that first saw the light of day?
Oh, it goes back so far. I had different cost estimates. One time it was $3.5 million, and then I kept fooling around with it and got up to $7.5 million, and I kept fooling around a little more, and pretty soon it was $12.5, and I think when we opened Disneyland, it was $17 million.
And then it grew like topsy.
Today, it is going on $45 million.
My gosh. Well, now today, the newest and most exciting aspect of Disneyland is what I've turned this over on my tongue several times, what you call audio animatronics.
Yes, audio animatronic figures. It's a sort of another door that's open for us. You see, our whole 40-some-odd years here has been in the world of making things move, inanimate things move. Yeah? From a drawing through all kinds of any little props and things. Now we're making these human figures, dimensional human figures move, make animals move, make anything move, through the use of electronics. It's a tape mechanism that the tape, it's like a programming or sequencing when they do a missile, when they're sending some missile to the moon, say. Yeah. At different stages, at different times, things must happen. That's all programmed, predetermined. So our show is put on that tape, and it's programmed from this tape. And we run it off a little 1-inch tape that has 14 tracks, and on each track we can get up to 16 signals. Now those little signals go and impulse this figure, and make the figure move, make the figure talk, and everything. Well, look, I could show it to you a lot better than I can tell you about it. We come over here and I'll give you a little preview.
I should say.
Well, here we are, Fletcher. This is a little audio animatronic setup for the parter kit, so to speak. Now, these are not working from tape. These are manually controlled. This little gizmo here, kind of like a joystick on the old type airplanes, is what gives us a chance to program the birds. And as we work this and get all the little movements that we want in the bird out, we record it on the tape. And then from then on, the tape will do everything that we've done here. Sit down. We'll have a little go at this thing. Now, this is not part of our Disneyland show. I mean, you know, the Tiki Room. This is a little robin that we had in Mary Poppins. And this little bird sang a duet with Julie Andrews. Maybe we can get a little response from it. Hello there, kid. What can you do for us, huh? Can you sing, whistle, anything? Huh? It's pretty good. That's marvelous. Now, this is one of the characters from the Tiki Room. He's actually a substitute. In other words, if one of our master ceremonies, we have 4 macaws who act as master ceremonies in the Tiki Bird Room, Disneyland. And they actually keep the show rolling. And along with them are other birds who sing and things, and flowers that sing. And then the Tiki images, you know, the carved Tiki poles and things with these Tiki gods. They sing and they drum, and we have quite a show. But this is the boy that takes care of it. In other words, he's the stand-in for one of them, you know.
He's very alert.
Throw out your chest. Show him how big you are. That's it. Now, this is Fletcher Markle of CBC.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name.
Markle.
How do you spell that, sir?
M-A-R-K-L-E.
M-A-R-K, Markle.
That's right.
How do you do, sir?
How do you do? Whatever your name is.
Walt, what is my name?
Well, I'll tell you the truth, we haven't given them a name yet. How would you like Jose?
Muchas gracias. This gives me an accent.
How do you do, Jose? Now it's official.
How do you do? Oh, miss my accent.
Well, that's just a little demonstration of audio animatronic figures.
Now, let me make sure I understand what happens. In controlling these birds by these extraordinary instruments, you can at the same time record their movements on a tape?
That's right, after we get it programmed. It's like rehearsing a show. And you go through it and rehearse it, and you finally say, that's it. And we say, all right, let's go for a take. And as we go for a take, all the things we do here are recorded, and then when we play the tape back, he will do everything he's doing here. Only it's all part of a program show, you see?
And I understand then that the next step beyond the birds has been to do the same kind of programming with human beings.
Yes, with human beings, yeah. I'm not going to replace the human being. Believe me, no, that's...
To do the same kind of programming with human beings.
Yes, with human beings, yeah. I'm not going to replace the human being. Believe me, no, that's...
It seems unlikely, but if you had it to do over again, would you do any part of it differently?
Well, if I had it to do over again, I think, no, I don't think it would. I don't know. I hope I don't have to do it over again.
There's certainly a completely unique reward in having that feeling about your work and what you've accomplished.
Yes,
you're right. That's a reward of satisfaction and happiness, surely.
Yes.
What does happiness mean to you?
Well, of course, I mean, happiness is a state of mind. I mean, you can, it's your own doing. You can be happy or you can be unhappy. It's just according to the way you look at things, you know. So I think happiness is, well, contentment, but it doesn't mean you have to have wealth, you know. But all individuals are different. Some of us wouldn't be satisfied with just carrying out a routine job and being happy. Yet I envy those people. I had a brother who I really envied because he was a mailman. But he had all the fun. He had himself a trailer, and he used to go off and go fishing, and he didn't worry about payrolls and stories and picture grosses or anything. And he was the happy one. I always said he's the smart Disney.
people in power go out of their way to make sure that you are perpetually misled and manipulated. They seek to keep you in a distracted, naive bubble.